Hey there, and welcome to the second of our beginner watercolor classes, well, demos, I guess. They're based loosely on the live classes that I do here in Lake Worth at the venue at 1201. They're following along, so basically, I do the original class live. I figure out the best bits of it, and then I try to put it together in a quick demo for the people that miss any one of the weeks so that they can have something to go on. Today we're talking about value. As you know, I talk entirely throughout the beginner course as three things being important: the value, which is probably the most important, the shape, and the color. Color actually in watercolor being the third most important thing. If you get your shape and your value right, you can really play around with the color. Today we're going to be, let me switch this up. We are going to work on a high resolution, a high contrast image of a mocha pot, an espresso pot. I think I need some espresso right now. And I have run it through the application called Notanizer, Notanizer, that you can get at the App Store for Apple and also on Google Play. It will take a color image and break it down into as many black and white levels as you want, usually 3 or 4 for our purposes. As you can see, we've got a middle value, a light value, and a dark value, and that makes our shape. I'm going to paint this all in one color, just basically 2 tones plus white of the same color. I'll be using a dark purpley kind of color to show that you can get representation of a shape in 2D using really just values. I also used the number grid application. I know it's available for Apple. I don't know if it's available on other formats. This allows you to set how many grid lines you have, as well as their color and their thickness, so it can be a help to you when you're planning your drawings. I use simple graphic shapes for this demonstration. It really works best. All right, and I left the grid lines on here because it's a demonstration. Normally I would just erase them. These are both very handy tools to have when you're starting out to help you get your shapes right. Or decide what you're going to do with your shapes, because I definitely force this to be a little bit more stout and a little bit more exaggerated to show it off better in what we were doing. So let me mix up my color. And I'm going to grab some Diox purple, which is a nice dark color. And I'm going to add some sap green to it. And that's kind of a rich dark leaning to the warm side. And what I'm going to do is take some of that color and put it in a second well, so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to add water to that second well so that it's a lighter color. Then it's really just a matter of matching up what you see on your Notan that you've printed out with what you put in with paint. And that purple and green made a nice lavender color. It's kind of nice. It looks like that gunmetal gray of these pots. And you don't have to get things perfect, but you want to have an idea of where things go so that they can help you. Now what I can do is, since this section next to the spout is the middle tone as well, I can paint that whole bit, that whole side, because it's the middle down here as well. So I can just drop this in. And I like working with the paper up high like this. Not everybody does. but I like it, helps me get my paints to run. Now, if you're trying to be creative or getting closer to what a final painting would be, I'm going to cheat a little bit and decide that I want to kick in a little bit of a warm color into this tone, just for some variety. Totally, this doesn't have to happen. I'm just playing around because I like to play while I paint. So we got that. And something like that. We also have, turns out we have this, the middle color going right through here and here. Now it's already starting to look like one of those coffee pots, right? Yeah, it's kind of cool. All right. So one of the things you can do is go through and pick the areas that have the value that you're using and go ahead and lay them in all at one time. That's another way to do it, just like I went through and added that extra color, the middle value to the dark areas. You can also do it like a jigsaw puzzle if you want and work bit by bit. It's okay to leave some gaps and some lines. They really just make some sparkle. The idea is to get the idea and give yourself the room to be expressive. I know this is a very locked down sort of demo. This is, one color. But while it's still wet, you do have the opportunity to, like I said, play a little bit. I'm just going to throw some orange into here just because I want to. Because I'm going to show you a little bit about how to make these things go closer to a finished painting. Now, I'm going to work on the lid for a second because it's a dry area. This is a lot of angles and a lot of hard edges. There's not a lot of soft transitions. So the key here is to work on dry paper. And that's as much as I need for that. And then I am using also a number 10 rosemary brush. I should have mentioned that before. Okay. While I'm at it, I'm going to put that handle in. Your paint should be able to move, even if it's dark and rich with color, well, it's not color at this point, but even if it's fairly heavy with pigment, it should be thin enough or have enough water in it to make it move around. I'm also, now if you look at the Notan, that dark color reads as black, and that's fine, and you can do that. I'm compressing this to a 3 tones, and this is just the darker tone. It does not have to be black at all. In fact, black might be too heavy. Same thing here. I'm just going to grab a little bit of that orange, where we've got a little chance for a highlight up there without changing the tonal value. All right, what have we got left? We've got this dark panel, a little playing up in here, dark here, and dark near the top here, and then the shadow. So we're almost done. All right, now. One of the other things this helps you do is, in the case of this pot, I mean, it's very angular, and we've done it with the Notanizer to give you very distinct tones. Again, I'm throwing a little bit of orange in there because I like to play. You don't have to do that for this exercise. You can simply just work with the one tone if you want. It's your painting. You know, do what makes you happy. That's the entire key to painting, is let it bring you some joy. Let it make you happy. And as I look at my drawing, I'm correcting shapes as I go. Once you have the drawing done, it's not carved in stone. If you see something wrong, go ahead and give it a little bit of a fix. Now, there's really nothing here in that photo. I am simply adding an edge, a little corner, so that it doesn't fall off into the background. And I'll just soften the edge on that just so that it looks like it's actually sitting in space instead of falling apart. All right, we've got that very last. As you can see, I'm holding my brush way back at the end. I find, especially if you want to have looseness and freshness in your brushwork, it is the best, absolute best way to handle a brush so that you're not choking it like a pencil. We're taught to really have a death grip on pencils, and that carries over into painting if you're not careful. I see that this has gotten lighter as I've been dipping my brush into it, so I'm just gonna boost it back up a little bit so it's not too light. And because this is still wet, that's maybe too much green in there and not enough purple. Okay, yeah, that's better. And this will dry down lighter, but because this is still wet and still has that bead on it, I wasn't worried about getting a hard edge or having anything break down on me. And this shadow crosses across both edges, both planes, so it's kind of fun to make it all one shape. Any chance you get to make either a shadow or a highlight, or any value for that matter, one shape, it always comes out better that way. I'm going to leave just a little tiny smidge of white where that corner is, because maybe it's catching a reflection. So this panel is also dark. I almost forgot this one. And as you do these, you'll also start to figure out if you want a soft transition between two colors. Like here, maybe I want this to be a little bit softer edge than the other ones. Just come in with a damp brush where the two meet. And come in there with some water. And then pull it away so that you end up fading that edge a little bit. Let's see. So this up here is dark, and I'm just going to work around the screws. And as you get comfortable with stuff like this and you get able to release your shapes and not be too married to them, know where they are, know where all of your breaks and your shapes are, but be okay with your brush doing what it wants to do, because I'll be honest with you, it's going to anyway. So that is our mocha pot, and I think I just want to put a little bit of a shadow just under that lip, and then maybe darken this front panel so we're actually adding one more tone. By putting the dark on top of the dark, we've actually created one more tone. And that's it. That's our little mocha pot. What we can do to give it a little bit of shape is to give it a little bit of a background. So I'm just dropping in a little bit of the lighter tone at the 1/3 line, and then just like I did up above with the softer edge, I'm just going to run that down to clean water. Again, it's just so that it feels like it's inside of the world. And if your background is not dark enough up at the top, it's still probably wet, so you can just drop in a little bit of color. And there you have it. That's the mocha pot. I used Diox purple mixed with some green to make it less purple, so it's more of a gray. It's kind of a lavender gray. And then just for interest, I popped in some orange while it was still wet into a couple of places. When you get these values right, you can paint anything. This was a particularly easy subject because it's so graphic. And I'm going to make that point now about the Notanizer. The Notanizer can be an absolutely great application, but I was painting water lilies today, and when I ran my photo through Notanizer to kind of get an idea of the value shapes, I realized that if your green of your water lilies and your pink of the lily pads and the pink of the flowers is the same value, it's all going to show up as one value shape. So sometimes you have to look at your color picture or make a really high contrast version of your color picture to find your shapes. Notanizer is an absolutely great tool, but it does have its limitations. I just wanted to make you aware of that fact. It's not the holy grail. It does help, but it is not perfect by any means. In our next lesson, we're going to look at color, which we did last week in the classroom, and we will actually use this painting again and add some color to it to finish it, because that's one way you can work, is paint your values all in once and let them dry completely, and then add your local color on top. So we may do that with this one, but next week is definitely the beginning of color for you guys. We'll do color. Yeah, so next week we're going to do color studies. I'll start introducing you to the color wheel. We're going to make our own color wheels. And also we're going to take a look at how James Gurney breaks up 3-color triads and tests them out to see if they are the colors he wants or can achieve the colors he wants in a painting. That'll probably cover the next 2 lessons. So looking forward to seeing you, and keep painting.